Good morning. And we continue with question 9. How do I try out these ideas without taking too much risk? Perhaps you are persuaded that this approach makes sense, but are worried that you will not be able to execute it well enough to better the results of your current approach. What can you do to try out these ideas without taking too much risk? Start small. Experiment in negotiations where the stakes are small, where you have a good BATNA, where favorable objective standards are available and seem relevant, and where the other side is likely to be agreeable to this approach. Start with ideas that build on your current skills. Then try out new ideas one at a time. As you gain experience and confidence, slowly raise the stakes by trying new techniques in more significant and challenging contexts. You don't have to try everything at once. And the next, make an investment. Some people play tennis all their lives, but never get better. Those people are not willing to take a fresh look at what they do or to consider changing it. Good players recognize that getting better often means making an investment in new approaches. For a while, they may get worse as they wrestle with new and unfamiliar techniques, but eventually they surpass their old plateau. The new techniques offer more long-term potential. You need to do the same with negotiation. And the next, review your performance. Schedule time to think about how you did after each significant negotiation. What worked? What did not? What might you have done differently? Consider keeping a negotiation journal or diary, which you can reread periodically. You okay, buddy? He's okay? Everybody's okay? We're okay, right? He's okay. Yep, everybody's okay. Never fear. Crystal's here. All right, prepare. Negotiation power. As discussed below, is not... Oh, sorry. Let's try that. Prepare! Exclamation point. Negotiation power, as discussed below, is not something of which you have a certain quantity that can be applied anywhere for any purpose. It requires hard work in advance to bring your resources to bear on being persuasive in a particular situation. In other words, it requires preparation. There is no risk in being well prepared. It simply takes time. Here comes the sun. So beautiful. It's like a giant orange. Alright. Plan how to build and maintain a good working relationship with the other side. Write out a list of your interests and the other side's. Then invent a list of options that might satisfy as many of these interests as possible. Look for a variety of external benchmarks or criteria. that might persuade a reasonable third party of what should be done. Ask yourself what arguments you would like to be able to make, and then see if you can't find the facts and information you would need to make them. Also consider what benchmarks your counterpart might find persuasive in justifying an agreement to his or her constituents. If negotiators for the other side would find it difficult to justify terms to their constituents, agreement on those terms is unlikely. And consider what commitments you would like each side to make. Sketch out a possible framework together. Sketch out a possible framework agreement. So technically together was okay. Anyway. Oh, so beautiful. Does it feel like, I just keep going in. But you have to be sometimes to see what that sun does. Woo. Pretty. All right, here we go. In some cases, we're almost done with 9, by the way. I'm going to try to squeeze 10 in if the sun will let us. In some cases, you may want to ask a friend to help you role play an upcoming negotiation, either by playing the other side or by playing you after coaching. While you play the other side, assuming the role of the other side and listening from the receiving end to your own arguments is a powerful technique for testing your case. You may also want to seek coaching from friends, more experienced negotiators, or professional negotiation consultants. In many ways, negotiation is like athletics. Some people have more natural talent, and like the best athletes, they may gain the most from preparation, practice, and coaching. Yet those with less natural talent have more need for preparation, practice, and feedback, and much to gain by it. Whichever you are, there is much to learn, and hard work will pay off. It is up to you. All right, the next one on page 177 and the final one. I may be mistaken about that. It's got a few pages here. Got 177 to 187. I no longer have confidence that I'm going to be able to finish this, but we're going to roll with it. Stay with me. The sun is worth it. So beautiful. Thanks for being with me. Let me read my Getting to Yes Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In by Roger Fisher and William Ury. This one has Bruce Patton of the Harvard Negotiation Project. All right, question 10. Can the way I negotiate really make a difference if the other side is more powerful? And how do I enhance my negotiating power? How you negotiate and how you prepare to negotiate can make an enormous difference, whatever the relative strengths of each party. Some things you cannot get. Of course, no matter how skilled you are, there are limits to what you can get through negotiation. The best negotiator in the world will not be able to buy the White House. You should not expect success in negotiation unless you are able to make the other side an offer they find more attractive than their best alternative. Their BATNA, their best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If that seems impossible, then negotiation does not make sense. Concentrate instead on improving your BATNA and perhaps changing theirs. The next, how you negotiate makes a big difference. In a situation where there is a chance for agreement, the way you negotiate can make the difference between coming to terms and not, or between an outcome that you find favorable and one that is merely acceptable. How you negotiate may determine whether the pie is expanded or merely divided, and whether you have a good relationship with the other side or a strained one. When the other side seems to hold all the cards, how you negotiate is absolutely critical. Suppose, for example, that you are negotiating for an exception to a rule or a job offer. Realistically, you may have little recourse if the other side denies your request, and little to offer if they grant it. In this situation, your negotiation skill is everything. However small the opportunity for success, the way in which you negotiate will determine whether you are able to take advantage of it. And the next, resources are not the same as negotiation power. Negotiation power is the ability to persuade someone to do something. The United States is rich and has lots of nuclear bombs, but neither has been of much help in deterring terrorist actions or freeing hostages when they have been held in places like Beirut. Whether your resources give you negotiating power will depend on the context, on whom you are trying to persuade, and what you want them to do. Okay, the next one. Alright, somebody let a stinky in here. Chewy. Which one of you did that? Chewy. Puppy dogs. My apologies for my distraction. I'm trying to breathe. Alright. Do not ask who is more powerful. Try to estimate whether you or your counterparts are more powerful is risky. If you conclude that you are more powerful, you may relax and not prepare as well as you should. On the other hand, if you conclude that you are weaker than the other side, there is a risk that you will be discouraged and again not devote sufficient attention to how you might persuade them. Whatever you conclude will not help you figure out how best to proceed. Doggy. Oh. Took the boys by the water yesterday and Zorro, Mookie, got into a whole bunch of shad. Like got into as in like he ate them all. And this morning, I'm reminded of the shad that I let him eat by the bank yesterday. Woo! Puppy. Alright, let's try to stay focused here. I'm gonna roll down the window. I like breathing air, puppy dog. Alright, here we go. Sorry about that. If you were here, you would appreciate what I'm going through. Okay, just kidding. Here we go. If you conclude that you are more powerful, you may relax and not prepare as well as you should. On the other hand, if you conclude that you are weaker than the other side, there is a risk that you will be discouraged and again not devote sufficient attention to how you might persuade them. Whatever you conclude will not help you figure out how best to proceed. In fact, a great deal can be done to enhance your negotiation power, even when the resource balance is one-sided. Of course, there will be negotiations where, at least in the short term, the best cards are held by the other side. But in this increasingly interdependent world, there are almost always resources and potential allies that a skilled and persistent negotiator can exploit, at least to move the fulcrum, if not ultimately to tip the balance of power the other way. You won't find out what's possible unless you try. Sometimes people seem to prefer feeling powerless and believing that there is nothing they can do to affect a situation. Oh my God, that's beautiful. In fact, a great deal can be done to enhance your negotiation power even when the resource balance is one-sided. Of course, there will be negotiations where, at least in the short term, the best cards are held by the other side. But in this increasingly interdependent world, there are almost always resources and potential allies that a skilled and persistent negotiator can exploit, at least to move the fulcrum, if not ultimately to tip the balance of power the other way. You won't find out what's possible unless you try. Sometimes people seem to prefer feeling powerless and believing that there is nothing they can do to affect a situation. That belief helps them avoid feeling responsible or guilty about inaction. It also avoids the costs of trying to change the situation, making an effort, and risking failure, which might cause the person embarrassment. But while this feeling is understandable, it does not affect the reality of what the person might accomplish by effective negotiation. It is a self-defeating and self-fulfilling attitude. The best rule of thumb is to be optimistic, to let your reach exceed your grasp, without wasting a lot of resources on hopeless causes. Recognize that many things are worth trying for, even if you may not succeed. The more you try for, the more you are likely to get. Studies of negotiation consistently show a strong correlation between aspiration and result. Within reason, it pays to think positively. I see you, buddy. I see you. There are many sources. Oh, what are you doing, little bug? Hey. I see you. I see you, little bug. Hey, hey, hey. No, thank you. Just come in to see if I'm tasty. and then little sweppies. Alright, let's see if I can get us through a little bit more. This has got to be the good stuff if it's at the end, right? Alright, there are many sources of negotiation power. How do you enhance your negotiating power? This entire book is an attempt to answer that question. Negotiation power has many sources. One is having a good batna. Provided they believe you, it is persuasive to tell the other side that you have a better alternative. But each of the 4 elements of the method outlined in part 2 of this book, people, interests, options, and objective criteria, is also a source of negotiation power. If the other side is strong in one area, you can try to develop strength in another. To these 5, we would now add a 6th, the power of commitment. There is power in developing a good working relationship between the people negotiating. If you understand the other side and they understand you, if emotions are acknowledged and people are treated with respect, even when they disagree, if there is clear two-way communication with good listening, and if problems are dealt with directly, not by demanding or offering concessions on substance, negotiations are likely to be smoother and more successful for both parties. In this case, negotiation power is not a zero-sum phenomenon. More negotiation power for the other side does not necessarily mean less for you. The better your working relationship, the better able each of you is to influence the other. Contrary to some conventional wisdom, you will often benefit from the other side's increasing their ability to influence you. 2 people with well-deserved reputations for being trustworthy are each better able to influence the other than are 2 people with reputations for dishonesty. That you can trust the other side increases their ability to influence you, but you also benefit. You can safely enter into agreements that will benefit both sides. Good communication is an especially significant source of negotiating power. Crafting your message with punch, listening to the other side, and showing that you have heard can all increase your persuasiveness. John F. Kennedy was justly famous for his skill at the first of these, crafting a forceful message. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. That was his inaugural address from January 20th of 1961. A message does not have to be unequivocal to be clear and effective. In many cases, helping the other side understand your thinking, even when you are of 2 minds about something, can reduce the fears, clear up misperceptions, and promote joint problem solving. Consider the supplier who makes what she thinks is a competitive bid for a business supply contract. The purchaser likes the bid and the bidder, but is worried that the bidder's firm, which is new to the market, may not be able to manage the volume needed to meet his peak requirements. If the purchaser says simply, "No, thank you," and then pays more to hire another firm, the bidder may assume that the purchaser disliked her bid, and the bidder would have no opportunity to persuade the purchaser that she could handle the needed volume. It would be better for both if, instead, the purchaser shared both his interest in the bid and his concerns. Good listening can increase your negotiation power by increasing the information you have about the other side's interests or about possible options. Once you understand the other side's feelings and concerns, you can begin to address them, to explore areas of agreement and disagreement, and to develop useful ways to proceed in the future. Consider, for example, the elderly man whose doctor wanted to move him from his current hospital to one with specialized facilities. The doctor repeatedly explained how the specialized hospital would be better for him, but the man refused to budge. Knowing that the man was acting against his own best interest, the doctor dismissed his reasoning as irrational. One intern, however, took the man seriously and listened carefully to why he did not want to move. The patient told of how he had suffered repeated abandonments in his life and his fears that moving might result in another. The intern set about addressing this concern directly, and the man happily agreed to be moved. Showing that you have heard the other side also increases your ability to persuade them. When the other side feels heard by you, they are more apt to listen to you. It is comparatively easy to listen when the other side is saying something that you agree with. It is harder to listen to things with which you disagree, but that is the very time it is most effective. Listen before you launch into a rebuttal. Inquire. Fancy word for ask questions. Make sure, or be curious, I suppose. Make sure you understand their view and make sure they know that you understand. Once the other side knows that you understand what they have said, they cannot dismiss your disagreement as simple lack of understanding. I don't know what time it is. Let's see what that is.
See store for details.
All right, my loves. I'm so close to done, but I've got to go to work. So I will put this last little bit. I just can't do it, my sweets. It's another 5 pages. That's at least 10 more minutes, if not longer. Okay. So we're going to stop here. The next part I'll read to finish off question 10, which does finish this book, darling. There is power in understanding interests. Oh my gosh, doggies. I'm not being supplied with a great deal of air in this space here. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being with me, letting me read to you. Have a great day.